It was a scary time about 4 days ago. We kind of thought we might lose this town.
When I come home, the smoke's right there, so it's like confusing.
We want to get you back home. We really do.
The news at 6 begins right now. Good evening and thanks for being with us. I'm Jessica Aguirre.
And I'm Raj Mathai. We'll update the fires in just a minute, but we want to start with the sports boycott across the country right now, which is spreading, and we are waiting word to see if the Giants will join this boycott. This is a live look from our exclusive ballpark cam. Giants manager Gabe Kapler saying just a short while ago, the players will decide whether or not to sit out. Right now, no players are on the field, but the field crew was just out there preparing for a game which starts in about 45 minutes, scheduled to start. This all stems from the NBA. NBA players are boycotting tonight's playoff games to protest the shooting of Jacob Blake. Blake was shot in the back 7 times last weekend by a Wisconsin police officer. We're going to have more on this story and how it relates to here in the Bay Area in just a few minutes.
Okay, we want to take a moment to shift focus on the wildfires, which we've been covering now for a week. Firefighters are getting a handle on many of the fires. There were some people allowed to go back to their homes today, but what they found for many was just utter devastation. For others, evacuation orders and warnings are still in place. Also, help is now available from FEMA. Victims are being told to register with FEMA as soon as possible.
This is a painful time for so many people. Let's show you now just the latest numbers. We start with that SCU complex fire that's raging across 5 separate counties, including Santa Clara County, Contra Costa County, and Alameda County. Some of the numbers in 25% containment, which is good news. In the North Bay now, the LNU fire, Sonoma County, Napa County, Solano County, 33% contained. However, 5 people have died. And last but certainly not least, the Woodward fire in Marin. It's much smaller. The Woodward fire right here, it's much smaller, but it's still growing. And now we should say the last one we're talking about, the CZU fire burning along the coast, nearly 20% contained. 1 person has died. We're expecting an update in just a few minutes. Jessica.
Okay, thank you very much. We are getting some information on the CZU complex. We're going to get to that in a moment. But first, in the midst of all this destruction from the fires, we have some good news. Hundreds of invaluable, irreplaceable historical artifacts were rescued from a state park, from the museum, before the fire could actually get to them. NBC Bay Area's Robert Honda joins us from the Santa Cruz Mountains with a look at these treasures that have been saved and the brave state park officers who made that happen.
Well, state parks peace officers who also fight fires and rescue people emphasize saving homes is the top priority, but they can't help but feel proud they were able to save part of our area's history.
And there were hot embers raining down around us as we were loading the trucks.
Teams of determined rangers rescued about 450 boxes of historical artifacts from local state parks. Archaeologist and state parks cultural resource supervisor Mark Hilkema coordinated the unusual rescue mission, such as saving arrowheads from Native American groups even older than the Ohlone.
They're unique and irreplaceable, so these are the kinds of things that were important to rescue before it was too late.
How old are these?
These particular ones are 4,000 to 5,000 years old.
4,000 to 5,000 years old.
These are older still. These are 6,000 to 7,000 years. So you see the whistles and the fish hooks. So again, these are objects that once burned and destroyed are very hard to replace or irreplaceable.
But some buildings and artifacts were lost, such as at Big Basin.
And we had all the artifacts on the floor, packaged, ready to install. They all burned.
Oh, so you did lose some.
A lot.
So Hilkema wants the public to appreciate what was saved, such as this arrow.
It's got real deer sinew thread, real feathers, and a nice stone point, and socketed because the native people made their arrows in 2 parts.
It is all so fascinating, and it is part of our area's heritage. And thanks to park rangers, we'll be able to see the artifacts after the fires are out. In the Santa Cruz Mountains, Robert Honda, NBC Bay Area News.
All right, people who live near Lake Berryessa was victimized by the LNU fire. They got the first opportunity they got today to go back into their own homes. They thought they would be safe in Lake Berryessa, but unfortunately, many of them lost their homes. NBC Bay Area's Jody Hernandez has more.
Folks who live in the Lake Berryessa area tell us this is something they fear every year, losing their house to a fire. For many, that fear has come true.
It's so nice up here, peaceful, a small community, and we just love it up here.
But that sense of peace and tranquility disappeared in a flash last Tuesday night when the LNU Lightning Complex fire came roaring through the Lake Berryessa area.
We never thought anything like this would happen, that's for sure.
29-year-old Kristen Forbin has lived in the Berryessa Highlands area all her life and is now raising a family of her own there. While she's had to evacuate before, she's never experienced this.
Came back to, of course, our nice new reality of we don't have a home.
The California National Guard is now escorting residents back into the burn zone to try to salvage what they can. While many houses have been destroyed, others are still standing. Ramona Murray is grateful hers was spared, but she's hurting for her neighbors.
It's just so hard just to see everybody that's lost their homes. Just devastating, but all we can do is pray.
I think we're still kind of in shock a little bit.
Dan Breitbach says this was the third or fourth time they've had to evacuate in the last 4 years.
It's the stress every year, wondering, gee, is this the year we're going to, lose our home? And this was the year.
But while the Breitbachs love Lake Berryessa, they say it's time to move. But Kristen Forbin says she can't imagine living anywhere else.
It's a very special place. It's a piece of heaven in the middle of, feels like chaos sometimes. So being here, even with a house burnt down, I still feel like I'm at home.
And you're looking at what used to be a house with a beautiful view of Lake Berryessa. That house has been destroyed tonight. Now, while the fire did destroy a lot of houses up in this area, it spared many others, like this house next door. So there are a number of houses that are still standing up here tonight. The California National Guard is patrolling this area to make sure what is left up here stays safe. In Napa County, I'm Jody Hernandez, NBC Bay Area News.
Okay, thank you, Jody. Now we want to bring you up to date on information on the CZU complex fire. That's the one burning in San Mateo and Santa Cruz County. Cal Fire giving an update. Let's listen in.
It's in place across the incident area. We also have additional crews that have come in throughout the day, and we now have 1,982 firefighting personnel assigned to the incident. With that, I'll hand it over to Cal Fire Incident Management Team 3 Chief Mark Brunton for an operations update.
Good evening. So we had another good, successful day of suppression on the fire. The weather threw a few hindrances our way that I'll go into later, but overall some good success and continued successes as we speak this evening. As mentioned earlier, in the Division Golf Kilo, that line is still continuing to hold. That is very critical as far as keeping any sort of fire spread to the north and to the east, which would potentially threaten Santa Clara County, but that's shut off, and we continue to monitor and mop up and patrol that, and that's looking really good. Continue more line construction and letting the fire back down to our control line, Butano, that's just creeping down. The weather's helping mitigate that. But that's part of our strategy so that we can bring it to more favorable ground in which to work on. The communities of Pescadero, La Honda, Loma Mar are looking really good. So we're just continuing to monitor that part of the fire and trying to wrap that up to make that safe. Working down the Highway 1 corridor, we're having more and more success with that, putting a control line where we need to. Some of the fire is self-mitigated, as I've said before, and we're just continuing to monitor that. Davenport's looking really good. I know today they were working on re-energizing the electricity to that community, and so we're trying to start to get that up and running. A lot of work along Highway 1 by PG&E, restoring the infrastructure there, as well as Caltrans to make sure that the road is safe to pass. Our line to the south continues to hold, looks really good. That's protecting the communities of Santa Cruz and the UC campus. So I was just there just about an hour ago. It looks really solid, and we're very comfortable with that, in particular because we're going to start seeing a weather change where we're going to see a northerly push of a wind moving into this weekend. So I feel comfortable that that's going to hold. And what will be also good with that wind blowing on that is what we call a wind test. And that means that the lines will hold based on the wind, an adverse wind to it. So we believe that that will survive a wind test, and to us, that's a great measure of success because it means that that fire is extinguished and our lines are doing what they're supposed to do. The Highway 9 corridor, so Felton's looking really good. We've got good line around about 3/4 of it, and we're continuing to put line up through the Highway 9 corridor behind the communities of Ben Lomond, Boulder Creek. A lot of crews, as we're getting crews in. We've received a few more hand crews come in, and they are working. We've put them right to work, so we're having a lot of success with that, and we're going to continue to have a lot of success with that. Down just between Ben Lomond and Felton, I was talking about a burnout operation. Just came directly from that operation right now. We're taking that slow, methodical. The weather conditions had to delay that operation because, as we saw today, some fog that stuck around a long time. It kept the fuel moistures and the relative humidity up. So we really had to wait before we started lighting that fire so that we have an effective burn and one that we can control readily. So as I left the line shortly ago, it's looking good. It's burning well. It's doing exactly what we want it to do. It's just going to take us a little bit longer to accomplish that mission than we originally thought because of the weather. But we're looking at making that line go just on the backside of Felton, just below Ben Lomond, and tie into to Highway 9. So that'll give us a good level of protection for the community of Felton, and then we'll continue up, as we stated, up the Highway 9 corridor. Bonnie Dune's looking really good. We've got a lot of resources in there. They're continuing to mop up around homes. They're continuing to find any fire that are in some of the ravines and gullies and drainages and start to extinguish that and mop that up. There are a lot of hazard trees in there. We've had a number of trees fall across Felton Empire Grade Road that we've had to bring our specialty crews in to open up the road.
Okay, you've been listening live to the nightly briefing by CAL FIRE, and some of the recap here. It's just very good progress for the third straight day. The CAL FIRE officials say they are making very good progress, specifically with this CZU fire in San Mateo County and Santa Cruz County. They are holding the line, which is good news, preventing the spread of this fire into Santa Clara County, which includes Palo Alto Hills, Los Altos Hills, and the Cupertino Hills. They're also preventing the spread into the UCSC campus down in Santa Cruz and the Bonnie Dune area in the Santa Cruz Mountains. Now, we are streaming the rest of this news conference on our website. It continues to happen right now. You can watch it live at NBCBayArea.com.
Up next, help is here. The special new firefighters arriving in the North Bay today.
And I'm tracking what's happening on the fire lines and our air quality forecast. I'll have that update in about 6 minutes.
Let's get back to our other breaking news story. NBA players are boycotting tonight's playoff games in response to the shooting of Jacob Blake. Some baseball teams are also boycotting. The Giants are joining this boycott. This is according to our colleagues over at NBC Sports Bay Area. This news just being passed along about 2 to 3 minutes ago. This is a live look from our ballpark cam at Oracle Park. The games was supposed to start in 30 minutes from now, but as you can see, there are no players on the field, no members of the Giants or the Dodgers. Let's bring in NBC Bay Area's Christy Smith at the ballpark. Still no official word from the teams themselves, but that's what we're hearing right now. Christy, what do you have where you are?
Well, those are the reports that we are hearing, that it may be postponed. But again, at this point, still there are some questions out there and very few answers. We've been outside the park for maybe over an hour, and it's been rather quiet. And at this point, we still have not heard any official word. Now, in the aftermath of the police shooting of Jacob Blake, there has been renewed concern and protest. The sports world joined the conversation this afternoon when the NBA's Milwaukee Bucks refused to play their game. Other teams, of course, followed suit. Ultimately, all the NBA's games were canceled. Then in Major League Baseball, the Brewers and the Reds, well, they refused to play, and that triggered questions about other games around the league. And then the Giants manager, Gabe Kapler, came out and said that the players were meeting and discussing the Blake shooting to determine how to respond. But at that point, there was no official word. But then came reports that equipment was being taken out of the Giants dugout. And then also recently, we noted that the bases were being pulled up, which of course leads to the thought that this was perhaps postponed. But then, of course, the Giants, they have not said anything officially, and the Dodgers have put out a lineup, so that then fueled speculation that it may happen. But at this point, what the reports are at this point is that it seems to be postponed. Reporting live in San Francisco, Christy Smith, NBC Bay Area News.
Yeah, Christy, and inside that ballpark, there are no players on the field right now. Thank you. Now, this is something we just haven't seen before, a boycott at this level, at this magnitude.
This is a moment right now that people are seizing, and they understand. You know, we've been in this position for a few months now, since the George Floyd killing in Minneapolis in May. It's been about 3 months, and we've seen some sweeping demonstrations around not just the country, but the world. And I think that is really resonating with a lot of people. Whereas before, this was seen as a Black problem, and now people see it as a human problem.
That's Monty Poole, longtime Bay Area sports reporter and our colleague over at NBC Sports Bay Area. We should note the A's are in Texas this evening, and they are playing as scheduled.
Now, we've just learned new details about the shooting that Jacob Blake's family says left him paralyzed. About 2 hours ago, the Wisconsin Attorney General held a news conference. He says it started with a call from a woman saying her boyfriend was at her home and that he wasn't supposed to be. The Attorney General says police tried to arrest Blake, tasered him, but it didn't work. Now, video shows Blake walking around his car and opening the driver's side door. Authorities say an officer held on to Blake's shirt and fired his gun 7 times. Wisconsin police officers do not wear body cameras. The officer who shot Blake is a 7-year veteran of the department. The shooting has sparked several nights of protest overnight. 2 people were shot and killed and a 3rd person hurt. A teenager is now in custody in connection to the shooting tonight. The city of Oakland says it is aware of a planned demonstration for Frank Ogawa Plaza.
Let's bring in now our chief meteorologist, Jeff Ranieri. Just talk about our improved air quality and maybe some of the conditions the firefighters are fighting right now on the lines. Jeff.
And it's just such great news weather-wise here. It's really giving firefighters a leg up. It's giving all of us the ability to go outside and actually breathe in air that's not filled with smoke. So as we bring you into the maps tonight, I did want to start off and kind of reset things for you, get a nice wide look at the 3 fire zones, what the temperatures are right now, what my forecast is for tomorrow. And then you can also see this other new thing that I've added to my map here, and it's how much growth have we seen over the past 24 hours. 5,000 acres growth here in the North Bay. Tomorrow, 91 degrees, wind gusts up to about 20, and humidity at 26%. So that really is continued good news for the firefighters. 5,000 acres is quite a bit smaller than the growth we had seen in a 24-hour period. So again, things are looking better. Down here to the South Bay, 2,000 acres growth over the past 24 hours. Tomorrow, 87 degrees, humidity at 31%. Look at the humidity near the coastline where that fog is developing. Tomorrow, it's up to 47%. So that's some increased moisture at the lower levels, and that's going to help to dampen up a lot of the fuel that's out there, the trees, the brush, and everything, and that helps. 79 degrees and wind gusts of 20. So weather is continually on the firefighter side tomorrow. And what about the air quality? Best air quality we have seen at this time since the firefights started. You can see in San Francisco, it is completely fogged in. We have some drizzle. Look at all this green here in my map. All of these numbers from Mill Valley to Oakland down to Palo Alto, that is all good air quality. And even for the inland valleys, which has been stuck with unhealthy air, you're in the yellow, which is considered some moderate air quality. Now, as we move through tomorrow, I do expect us to possibly teeter back into the unhealthy range with that fog pattern potentially breaking a little bit. So the North Bay, East Bay, South Bay could go back into the unhealthy, but generally still some low numbers considering where we've been. Temperatures tomorrow, 60s at the coast, 70s by the bay. You got 84 in Napa, 90 in Antioch, 86 also in Morgan Hill. Coming up in about 25 minutes, we'll take more looks at the fire forecast, and I'll have the latest on Hurricane Laura, which is just hours away from making landfall. This could be devastating and deadly if people don't take those evacuations seriously. So I'll have an update on that.
All right, Jeff, we'll see you shortly. Up next here at 6 o'clock, the National Guard has arrived in the Bay Area and providing a lot of support in the North Bay specifically. We'll tell you about the special training that they received.
Finally, allowed home evacuees in Healdsburg were allowed to go back into their own neighborhoods. It was a painful and difficult milestone, with fire crews still battling in the hills. But as NBC Barry's Joe Rosado Jr. shows us, those crews are now getting help from the National Guard.
Charred fences and blackened trees laid out the path where the fire marched along Mill Creek Road in Healdsburg. Beneath towering trees, fire crews cut away vegetation and put out spot fires.
We have received a number of additional firefighters from not only across California, but across the western United States.
Evacuation orders were lifted in Healdsburg, but in the hills above nearby Russian River communities, crews continue to battle in steep and inaccessible terrain.
So it really does require literally boots on the ground, hand constructing containment lines.
Today, 600 boots hit the ground as 300 National Guard troops arrived in Santa Rosa to help out.
We are there to be able to do the mop-up work, to assist on ensuring that we're able to the fires do not continue to spread.
The troops went through a week of fire training and will be working to cut lines alongside fire crews.
Many of my soldiers, this impacts their home, and so this is personal to them to be able to not only support the state, local communities, but also their families.
CAL FIRE says it's also getting some help from cooler temperatures and higher humidity, a teamwork of nature and people working to avert disaster. Joe Rosado Jr., NBC Bay Area News.
Up next at 6:30, saving homes. We're going to hear from Santa Cruz firefighters working around the clock to keep flames at bay, how they're handling these tough conditions.
Plus, a drastic change in COVID guidelines from the CDC, and it has medical experts speaking out. Why some are accusing the Trump administration of playing politics with health and safety. Right now it's 6:30. Some good news. Lower temps, calm winds, helping firefighters on the front lines. They're making good headway today on containing the Bay Area's 3 huge fires. Now we're keeping an eye on the containment for that cluster of main fires. More people being let back into fire-ravaged areas to see if their homes are still there. For some of them means finding everything devastated, while others seeing their homes spared. More evacuation orders erased tonight, including some communities in Napa County, but many other orders and warnings are still in place. Also, help is on the way now from FEMA. Victims are being told to register with the federal agency as soon as possible. And some breaking news along the coast. Santa Cruz County Sheriff deputies are still looking for 3 people missing from the evacuation zones. Here they are from left to right: 70-year-old Henry Reinke, 21-year-old Shane Smith, and 37-year-old Mika Soki.
Here's our fire map now. The LNU fire in the North Bay, the CZU fire in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and the SCU fire in the East and South Bay. We're also watching the Woodward fire threatening dozens of homes in Marin County.
Well, a harrowing story coming from the front lines in Santa Cruz Mountains tonight. NBC Barry's Marianne Favreau sat down with a man who decided to face the fire in order to save his own home. And then he ended up saving nearly a half a dozen neighbors' homes as well. Marianne, it's quite the story. I know firefighters tell you all the time you shouldn't stay and do it, but in this case, it worked out.
It did work out amazingly because he had very little equipment. Bill Wright Burton refused to evacuate, but he says because of that decision, some of his neighbors' homes are still standing. On Alba Road in Ben Lomond today, we found house after house burned to their foundations. But Bill Wright Burton's isn't among them. He says he decided to take a stand and saved his home.
One man with one rake.
He tells us he built a fire line around his home and kept debris away from the foundation. Then he went to work defending his neighbors' houses, saving 5.
I saved my home, but there were 11 others around me. It's really emotional to think I could have saved them.
In nearby Brookdale, volunteer firefighters did all they could to hold the line as flames raced down the canyon.
They're hot, they're intense, and you do what you can to try to save as many houses as you can.
For 14 years, a Brookdale family called this home. Today, all that's left of the Craftsman house is the chimney. But among the losses, there are victories. Ben Lomond volunteer firefighters estimate they saved as many as 40 homes.
Without the 30 or more guys that have come down to help out with this fire, we never could have saved as many houses as we did.
Here in Ben Lomond, volunteer firefighters spent the day putting out hot spots in remote areas, but they say they feel that this firefight has finally turned a corner. Reporting live in Ben Lomond, Marianne Favreau, NBC Bay Area News.
Marianne, thank you. Now, when you add up the big complex fires, it's 800,000 acres, which is more than 1,200 square miles. Let's bring in Chris Kimura on the big board for us with some new and different data points. What do you got for us, Chris?
Yeah, Raj, consider it's 150 miles essentially from up here near Clear Lake all the way down to Santa Cruz. And basically, wherever you are in the San Francisco Bay Area, fire is nearby. Let's start off talking real quick about the Woodward fire. So what we have here is a situation where CAL FIRE says it's working on the north, east, and south side, trying to prevent it from moving southward. They think they're in a good position there. Nonetheless, there are still evacuation warnings in place for Bolinas. All right, let's move on here. We're going to go to the north, and we're going to look at the dual fires here that we have in Sonoma and Napa County. I have information that's brand new, actually, on the north end. The map we're looking at here is A, the fire perimeter in orange, and then B, the red circles are indications from satellite sensors showing heat blooms or hot spots. What I can tell you is here on the north end of the fire, we have new evacuation orders in Yolo County as well as evacuation warnings in Lake County, east of Old Long Valley Road, New Long Valley Road extending to the north to Lake Colusa County line north of Highway 20. And as you can see, the satellites are indicating that there is a bit of a firefight going on the north end here in Napa County. Better news in Sonoma County, where we do see there are some hot spots on the northwest side as well as the southeast side, though it does appear that they are holding and the fire line is not moving toward Healdsburg at this point. Nonetheless, we do have a core of evacuation orders surrounded by a big kind of angled U shape of evacuation warnings in Sonoma County still at this point. Let's go to the CZU fire. We're going down south now. What I can tell you here is we have good news just coming in from CAL FIRE that the evacuation orders for UC Santa Cruz have just been lifted. That's good news. The indications here from satellites do show that there are hot spots down in the southeast as well as the northwest. Nonetheless, CAL FIRE has said that it thinks that it's been able to keep these under control, as you heard in the briefing at the top of our newscast. So places like Pescadero, while you might need to be on alert, it does appear, though, that these fire lines are being held. At the same time, some of these might actually be CAL FIRE doing work, because the briefing did indicate that they were doing some backfires or burnouts, which would appear on here. The satellites don't know the difference between a raging wildfire and CAL FIRE trying to do its work. So let's hope the more red we see here is actually CAL FIRE doing its thing. Let's move to the east now, to the SCU fire. So here we're looking at Santa Clara County, Morgan Hill down here, and Gilroy. We've seen a flare-up of activity by the satellites down here on the southwest side. Some of these are up in the hills where we see it looks like some of them might be straddling some of the peaks, so around 2,000 to 2,500 feet. Nonetheless, CAL FIRE has not moved any of the evacuation orders toward Morgan Hill and Gilroy. Nonetheless, we think it's wise for you to stay on top of all of this, because in a moment's notice, these fires could advance. So that's why the evacuation warnings do extend down here right to the edge of Morgan Hill and Gilroy. Up here on the north side, we have some of these flare-ups that are to the east of Fremont. Again, CAL FIRE has said it's been working up here. We had, I believe, Sharon Katsuda in this neck of the woods talking about some of that activity. Again, let's hope that some of this red activity that the satellites are seeing is a flare-up that's due to CAL FIRE doing some of those burnouts and fire lines, as opposed to the wildfire continuing to rage. If you'd like to check out these maps, you can do so right now on our website, as well as a list of evacuations. Our digital team is updating all of this information in real time, so go ahead and bookmark NBCBayArea.com/evacuations so you can see the very latest just as soon as we get it. Jess?
Okay, thanks, Chris. As thousands of firefighters try to fight Bay Area wildfires, they're also battling an enemy that they can't see. Yes, crews are taking extra precautions to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Firefighters in the North Bay say they're following CDC guidelines to stay safe, taking temperatures, doing the social distancing.
It's very evident if you go to the area where we eat, the chow line, we spread them out. None of the firefighters are really touching anything. Everything's boxed and ready to go for them to be able to just grab the food.
CAL FIRE says keeping crews healthy allows them to better focus on protecting lives and property.
Well, up next is the Trump administration right now is the Trump administration pressuring the CDC. Today, the CDC made a sudden change of policy when it comes to who should be getting tested. Doctors and health officials are rejecting the CDC guidance. Here's NBC Bay Area's Scott Budman.
It was a bombshell decision from the CDC. One Dr. Anthony Fauci says was made while he was in surgery and unable to argue. Changes in COVID testing guidelines, saying some people without symptoms don't need to be tested, even if they've been in contact with someone who has COVID. Reaction in Santa Clara County was swift.
I actually didn't believe it, for it seemed entirely bizarre, in that it undercuts our very basic tenets of how we control an infectious disease.
Dr. Sarah Cody also criticizing CDC advice that someone with symptoms might want to get a test, saying there should be no maybe.
Our local guidance and our order is quite clear that anyone with any symptoms of COVID should be tested right away.
And amid speculation, the CDC's decision was due to pressure from the White House. California Governor Gavin Newsom made it clear.
I don't agree with the new CDC guidance, period, full stop, and it's not the policy in the state of California. We will not be influenced by that change.
Governor Newsom went on to further criticize the CDC, saying California's COVID-related decisions will be made by scientists and doctors, not politicians. In San Jose, Scott Budman, NBC Bay Area News.
It is a tug of war. Thank you, Scott. Just ahead, how effective was Melania Trump, and what will we see tonight at the Republican National Convention? We're back in a moment. Governor Newsom announcing a new partnership that he says will dramatically increase California's COVID testing. The state is teaming up with Massachusetts-based PerkinElmer to build a new lab that will more than double California's test capacity. The deal is also expected to reduce the price of testing and speed up the turnaround time for test results.
That will provide an additional 150,000 tests per day. So we're averaging over 100,000 tests a day.
The governor said the increased testing capacity and better reliability will be critical as we move into flu season, which could lead to a dual health crisis.
All right, we want to check in again with meteorologist Jeff Ranieri. And Jeff, let's talk about the next couple of days. We've seen these, improving weather conditions for firefighters. Are we going to stay on this track?
I think in the short term, as we move through tomorrow, we'll stay on that track. Friday, some hotter temperatures, and then we could also see, the humidity begin to decrease. We'll go over all those conditions and what we can expect coming up in about 5 minutes.
Let's take a live look now at the Republican National Convention. This is Jack Brewer. He's a former NFL player. He is now at the podium. In about an hour, though, we are expecting Vice President Mike Pence to speak. Among the questions, will he address the unrest in Wisconsin and the subsequent boycott in the sports world? We do know this. Vice President Pence will speak from Fort McHenry in Baltimore. He'll talk about patriotism. Fort McHenry is the location that inspired Francis Scott Key to write the Star-Spangled Banner. Now, his wife Karen will also speak, as will Kellyanne Conway, who recently announced she's leaving the White House staff for family reasons. Lester Holt's going to lead our coverage in about 15 minutes from now at the RNC. Right now, though, let's bring in our political analyst, Larry Gersten. Larry, let's go back to last night because there's still a lot of energy and buzz for the Republicans about Melania Trump, the First Lady. How effective was she for the Republicans to sway some votes here?
One thing's for sure, Raj, it was the anti-Trump speech, the opposite image of who Donald Trump is. She talked about caring for COVID people. She's the only one who's really addressed that at any length, of the COVID problem, the tragedies involved with all these families who died and whatnot. She talked about that. She talked about social justice issues, equality, all the kinds of things that the president does not like to talk about. And of course, she made the president seem human empathetic. Now, whether he is, that's another story, but that was her speech. And as speeches go, it was probably one of the best speeches, at least in terms of bringing some humanity into this issue, into this discussion, and including some of the important issues that a lot of people want to hear.
She certainly did humanize President Trump. Is it effective now for those suburban women that they talk about that they need to get to win this election, the president?
It's hard to imagine that any one speech will be that effective. The question is, do they leave the convention in its 4-day entirety feeling that they've managed to get through to suburban women, get through to independents, get through to folks who might have been with them before but might not be with them now? One speech is not likely to do it, but the theme of the convention might. And at the end of this convention, tonight, tomorrow, we'll have a much better idea of who they might have reached and who not.
The Republicans are trying to energize the party. So far, are they doing their job in terms of what's going to happen in a couple of months from now?
They are doing their job in reaching the base. There is no question about it. Again and again, they're hammering on all the key issues, the courts, the right to life, all of these kinds of core themes that conservatives really want to hear. The question is, are they going beyond the base? You're not going to win an election with 35 to 40% of the voters. You're just not going to do it. You can't count on that many Democrats and independents not showing up because they might go the other way. Remember, 2016, many people consider a one of. And if that's the case, the Republicans have to cast a much wider net. Give the Democrats credit. They did that by bringing in key, important Republicans who have decided to say, we want Biden. The Republicans haven't done that with anybody of substance. So it remains to be seen whether they'll get anything more than just stoking that base, which probably won't be enough.
Tonight, Vice President Mike Pence in just about an hour, and then tomorrow night to wrap things up, President Trump. Larry, thank you.
All right. Coming up, what you need to know about casting your ballot during this pandemic. NBC News has put together an interactive Plan Your Vote tool. It's super easy. You can just find the link on our website, NBCBayArea.com.
A lot happening this evening. We need some good news. Let's bring in Jeff Ranieri because we're able to breathe a lot better. And I'm hoping we do get to see Lucy, your dog, at some point because we sure need her on a night like this.
We're going to try to work it in. She's right on over here, you guys. But of course, we do have our own weather emergency here with the fires happening. And then we also have another very dangerous situation down south towards Texas and Louisiana. I wanted to start off with this in case you have friends or family in Texas or Louisiana to let you know that we are just hours away from a landfall with Hurricane Laura. Port Arthur, Texas to Lake Charles, Louisiana. Really going to be the zone for that. A storm surge of 10 to 20 feet. That's why it's imperative if you have family or friends near the coastline, near Port Arthur, Texas, or Lake Charles, Louisiana, surrounding locations, they have to evacuate. Give them a call, check in on them, see how they're doing. Rain 6 to 20 inches and wind gusts at landfall of 150 miles per hour. We'll have more on that at NBCBayArea.com. Let's bring into our weather some good news tonight. The air quality, the best it has been since the fires have started. We now have rated good air quality back to Livermore, which is phenomenal considering how hard it has been to breathe. Moderate air quality for San Jose, Concord, and also Napa. It's all due to the fog. You can see it right here, very thick with the drizzle, acting like a big fan to push the smoke out of the Bay Area. Now, tomorrow, I think we still could see some unhealthy air return over the North Bay, East Bay, and the South Bay if that fog pattern breaks a little bit. But overall, things are getting better with that smoke. What's happening with the fires? Well, as that foggy breeze moves in, it's keeping temperatures down. We have 80 degrees right now up into the North Bay and 58% humidity. So that's added moisture that's helping out. We've only seen 5,000 acres growth in the past 24 hours. Down to the South Bay, 75 degrees, 45% humidity, and just 2,000 acres growth. So firefighters are gaining some ground. 66 here for the Santa Cruz Mountains, and we've seen 2,000 acres growth, and we do expect some very similar temperatures as we move through tomorrow's forecast. But what about the wind and humidity? That really is kind of the most important thing when it comes to fires. And you can see that we're not looking at any big wind events as we head through the next couple of days. So that is great news. High humidity Thursday and Friday, so that added moisture from the fog. But by Saturday and Sunday, we could see the humidity decrease a little bit. But overall, I think we should be able to maintain some of those containment lines. Temperatures right here at the coastline, 60s in San Francisco and Half Moon Bay. Then for the inland valleys, we're in the 80s to 90. Let's bring you to San Francisco, and you can see we're looking at 60s as we head through the next couple of days, and some 70s early next week. And for the inland valleys, we are going up into the 90s as we move through the next couple of days. Okay, back out on camera live. Lucy, come on up. She's been liking the improved air quality, you guys. I just wanted to say hello on this Lucy Wednesday.
Did you redo her bangs
she's gotten
again?
a haircut.
Yes, I just noticed it. She got her hair done.
She got a haircut.
Yes.
She got a haircut.
It takes a woman to notice that Lucy got her haircut.
That is breaking news right there.
Yes.
Super cute.
Thanks
And
for
she loves you
lovely,
guys.
Lucy.
All right.
Thanks for putting a smile on all our faces, Jeff. Appreciate it.
All right.
Up
You got
next, back to the reality here. The NBA, Major League Baseball, and Major League Soccer. The nationwide sports boycott is growing by the hour. This includes the Giants. We'll update our breaking news next.
Well, the Giants game was supposed to have started 5 minutes ago, but it seems there will be no game tonight.
No, it's official. No game. The Giants and Dodgers are one of 3 Major League Baseball games postponed in protest over the shooting of Jacob Blake. The bigger picture here, Jessica, this boycott is nationwide and it is growing. Oracle Park, just about 45 minutes ago, instead of the players getting ready on the field, there was nothing but the grounds crew. Now, this movement started earlier in the day when the Milwaukee Bucks refused to play their playoff game against Orlando. All 3 NBA playoff games were quickly postponed, followed by a handful of baseball games. The San Jose Earthquakes also calling off their game tonight. There will be a lot more on this story in the days to come and how it impacts not just the NBA, but all the other major sports leagues.
Okay, let's switch gears here, talk about something that is a little happier. All this month, NBC Bay Area working to clear the shelters to find new homes for pets. There's a Palo Alto team that came up with an idea to help us with our cause, and he ran with it.
And we like that. Neil Fulton is a distance runner at Palo Alto High School. He's organized a virtual run to clear the shelters to raise money for the group Pets in Need.
All you have to do is sign up, and then you can do the run wherever you are, and then send pictures to us for the event. And also, if you want to record your event on like a running platform, then you'll be put on the leaderboard for the event.
Now, you can walk or you can run the 5K anytime between this Friday and next Monday. You can do it anywhere on a treadmill. Entry fee $10. Head to NBCBayArea.com/clear the shelters to learn more. See ya.
Good night.